We are very happy that you are taking time to speak with us today. We would like to talk to you about the current situation of the cinema and its future. First question. How do you see the development of cinema today because of Corona, but also because of Netflix, Amazon? The importance of cinema has changed a lot in the last years.
Yes. So there were already so many large changes happening in cinema distribution and audience reception before Corona. So I think Corona has basically speeded up a lot of things that were going to take place in the next 2 to 3 years. Because so many people now are streaming cinema, also cinemas mostly are closed worldwide, and production companies are making decisions now about delaying openings, global openings for big films, and smaller films cannot go into production because of Corona restrictions. It's very, very difficult to come up with safe protocols for new films to be made. And of course, festivals are having to decide, do they postpone their dates? Do they become a virtual festival? Do they still have their marketplace? And is there enough cinema business being done for these marketplaces to happen? So Corona has pushed all of these topics to the front. And yet, without Corona, all of these topics would become very, very important in the next 2 or 3 years, because audience patterns are changing and distribution patterns and production company patterns are changing, very much driven by Netflix and very large streaming services. All the studios now are developing streaming services as their main income sources. In past years, of course, distribution was number one. Then it went to home video. That market changed from VHS to DVD to Blu-ray. Now it's direct streaming. So there's a lot of fear, I think, in the community of filmmakers and also in exhibitors and people who run cinemas. But I also have a lot of hope. And I will say the reason is the history of cinema is based on technological change, which threatens the audience's established patterns. And there's been a solution every time. And the solution comes about because ultimately people still love the experience of sitting in a cinema in an audience with other people. So if you think about silent film era, and then sound came in, and many people said, this will be the death of cinema, or cinema art will never recover. And of course it did. And then television became the big competitor, and different formats arose because of that, whether it was Technicolor and widescreen, drive-in movies, whatever the solution was, there were new gimmicks, I would say, to try to bring people back to the audience experience. So this is happening again and again. People thought movie-going would die with home video, when the VHS or the beta tape became possible and you could sit in your house and watch these movies. So I think this is a cycle. I think it's a cycle we're in. I still believe that movies are the defining art form of the 20th century, and I think they are as relevant now and in the future. It just depends on how people interact with them, and do they still value that cinema experience? I feel after Corona, people will come rushing back to experiences in person. I really, really believe that. And we reopened our cinema.
Together.
Yeah, we reopened our cinema about a month ago. And right now we can only sell 30 tickets per screening, but it's sold out every time.
Mm.
People really, on some level, they need to be together. They need the community of experience. I think festivals will come back stronger than ever. In the meanwhile, unfortunately, some people won't economically be able to stay open. So a portion of the business will fall away.
Mm. What is it, the special one for you to look together with many people?
I think I understand the question. So for me and for many, many people who love cinema, it's a really different experience to sit in a theater, to see it on a large screen, and especially to see it with other people. I streamed a lot of movies in the first days of Corona, and it fundamentally really is a different kind of experience. You see different things, you respond in a different way, you can pause it, you can go and get a snack. You know, you're not really seeing it in the way that the artist who made it intended you to see it. And you're not, even in the nicest home cinema, it's not the same sound system, you know, it's not the same projection quality. So I really do believe that if people have the chance to go in the cinema and be exposed to that experience, it will become a priority for them. And, you know, now most new films are marketing directly to teenagers, young, you know, teenagers and people in their early 20s. For this audience that wants to see a movie on the opening weekend, that wants to be among the first to see it so they can talk about it with their friends, they want to go with a group of people. You know, if you can, you know, if you have a generation that experiences that, then I think they become kind of addicted. That's what they want for the big movie experiences. You know, that's something that they will make a priority in their lives.
Okay, hope. Next question. Many large cinemas are experiencing financial problems. The middle-class audience seems to prefer a smaller art house cinema. Do you think the art house cinema will survive the crisis?
Marketplace really is very divided now between art house cinemas and large commercial cinemas. And commercial cinemas depend much more on Hollywood blockbusters, on visual effects, on sequels, on things with a global marketing budget that, you know, can travel around the world, and you know, the studio will have the funds to dub or to do the subtitling. It's a quite different market from the art house market or the classic cinema market. In our museum, we're doing a lot of retrospectives of films from the silent era to today, but global films that are quote unquote smaller, you know, that are independently made, that have a smaller budget, that have a smaller marketing budget, that don't have the resources to dub or translate into dozens of languages. So I think, you know, we're already seeing a split in the market. And probably younger audiences were more drawn to the, you know, sequels, the large blockbusters, the international productions in a larger cinema. And maybe a slightly older or professional or more cinephile audience is going to the art houses. What the big danger is for both kinds of cinemas is the tremendous financial losses from Corona. I think you're seeing that many of the smaller cinemas have no resources. They don't have a big international parent corporation. They don't have a lot of savings. So unless there's some government relief programs for them to apply for 10,000 here or 20,000 there in order just to keep their doors open, they're very much in danger of closing. And as I mentioned with the cinema here at our museum, we have 131 seats. Right now, legally, we can only sell 30 seats because of the Corona restrictions. So these small art houses, it doesn't even make sense for them to open to sell 20 tickets or 30 tickets. Yeah. The bigger cinemas, their problem is they own so much real estate. They own these large, large complexes with, 6 or 8 cinemas and, a big staff and maybe parking and a big concession business selling snacks and drinks. And all of this is, very, very fragile as well. So neither one of these operators are in good condition at the moment. And the independent cinemas in some way have an easier time right now getting films, because there's classic films, there's independent cinema that still needs a screen. The larger cinemas are the ones that are suffering, because if a film has been expensive to produce, it's not going to be offered right now because there's not enough audience for them to make the money back. And you just see something like Christopher Nolan and Tenet with Warner Brothers this summer. They set a date. He's a great supporter of in-person cinema. He wants his film in the movie theater. However, with Corona changing things from week to week, the date has been pushed back and pushed back. Now, it seems that the plan will be that in September, it comes to Europe and it goes to China, any place that can open cinemas, but the US won't see this movie on the same day because the conditions don't allow the cinemas to open. So, as much as cinema has over the years had these different technological challenges and the change in tastes and competition from other entertainment, this is very, very unprecedented to have such a global business that has really no control over when they can deliver their product to the customer.
Yeah. What do you think? How many films they will produced for 1 year for the cinema in the normal times?
Yeah. Well, under normal times, there are, about maybe 800 films that are released in the United States that are available, that are eligible for the Academy Award, let's say, that meet the criteria. Yeah. There's thousands more films that are festival films. There's hundreds of films made in countries like Germany or France. Smaller countries are making, 20 films, 30 films. If you look at a place like, Vietnam, if you look at India or Nigeria, each of those countries make 1,000 films or 2,000 films a year. So there's, there's regional marketplaces and things are quite specific from one place to the next. But what I really think will happen is it will be almost like 1 year of loss of content, that it's almost like the industry has to go to sleep, and it's like Sleeping Beauty waiting for a vaccine, and the prince will come and she will wake again, but that whole year will be lost. There just isn't really enough content. There aren't enough major films for the festivals that are still happening, and the competitions that are still happening. And so again, it's a pipeline problem. There's not enough films available to go and fill these big movie houses. So even if some of the cinemas could open with good Corona hygiene, they don't have a movie the audience wants to see in big numbers. And also, because there's just not a safe way to film right now, very, very few new films are being made. So this will have an effect until 2022, I think.
Maybe it's a chance to change the concept for the big cinemas to show whatever more of this small films or independent films also.
Yeah, I think the larger cinemas that have opened are being more creative. They are showing historic films and classics and retrospectives. They may take a risk on an independent or even a national film that they wouldn't normally show. Here in Germany, many multiplex cinemas are screening almost all American films and not many German films. You know, maybe they'll take a risk on something that they wouldn't have shown in normal times. And another thing that I really have seen is that people are getting very creative about making drive-in pop-up cinemas, you know, in big parking lots and at, you know, messes where the fair can't happen. You know, community screenings, and people want to be outside in these days with summer. It's the safest way to be with other people. So there's a lot of creativity right now about showing movies in physically different circumstances. And the public is really attracted to this right now.
Yeah, yeah. Last year in Bielefeld, they show a concert, live concert in the cinema. It's also a good idea and very interesting, but maybe not for Corona time. Yeah.
Yeah, we regularly offer concerts to go with films. We had a big exhibition on 2001: A Space Odyssey, and we screened the film in the Alta Oper with a live orchestra, and they played, you know, the Danube Waltz and all of the accompanying music, and it was fantastic. Right. So people love these kind of ways of bringing art forms together too, I think.
Yeah, nice. Question 3. How do you think cinema will look like in the future? How could cinema become more attractive for young people? That's the whole question on every part. Maybe also in museums and young people, only young people.
Well, it's very interesting to me because I think people sometimes get very locked into narrow categories of what cinema can be. And I think that with younger audiences, they are very open to different formats. They're open to things that run different lengths of time. They're open to things that are filmed in innovative and maybe even sometimes less professional looking ways, more amateur looking material. They're very interested in continuing stories that are serialized or in segments. And I think that this is actually not a bad thing. It's not the death of cinema. Every movie doesn't have to be a classic 2-hour studio production. You know, some stories really benefit from being able to be told in 6 hours or 8 hours or 10 hours. And I think if you look at really interesting filmmakers, they tend to work going back and forth between film and television. You know, we have YouTube, YouTube or short formats. You know, there's people doing concepts on TikTok. You know, it's not only short films that get now bought for a series or for a chance to make it as a feature production. So it used to be that it was very prestigious to be a filmmaker and less prestigious to be a television maker, for example. And now the boundaries are blurring. People really go back and forth and they look at the story they want to tell and they say, what is the best format for this story? And there's a lot of creative freedom that comes from that. And I think you end up with better productions if you don't try to take, you know, a 1,000-page novel and cram it into a 3-hour movie. Sometimes this doesn't really work so well, you know? And sometimes people take a little tiny idea and they make a short film and someone says, this is great, you should make a feature film. And they make it at 2 hours and there's not enough story, you know? So I think it's very important to say, you know, if you look at fiction writing, you know, there's short stories, there's, you know, haikus and poetry, then there's epic novels and mid-sized novels. There's, you know, film can respond to what the needs of the story are.
Yeah, I heard about a film about Zoom. And I don't know how long it was, but
well, and this is
Zoom. Yeah.
If people have to come up with new ways of working now, yeah, a movie shot on Zoom is actually perfect because you can film it and everybody is perfectly safe. Yeah. You know, the other examples I've heard of 2 films going into production where they took the crew and everybody went to a hotel and isolated together in the hotel for 2 weeks. And then everybody stayed on the production and they couldn't leave until the movie was shot. And this way, but you could only have 3 locations and no outside catering. Everything had to be done by the same team. And that's a hard way to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, question 4. How do you try to inspire young people who are surrounded by Netflix and Amazon Prime to go to the cinema? I think you talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would say overall, there's the way the marketplace works. And then there's also the kind of work that we do at the DFF, at the Deutsches Filminstitut and Filmmuseum, where we have in-person programs and we have digital programs and social media content and all kinds of other ways to try to inspire people to think about film as an art form, to be excited about the stories, to think about why it could be appealing to actually engage with cinema and really see a movie in person. And so I think this is a big responsibility of cultural heritage organizations, the education system, television broadcasters, cinema owners, film producers. If we don't create content that the youngest generations want to see, then we don't have an audience, you know? So it's very important to, you know, keep the classics alive, to bring young people, children and students into a relationship with movies and cinema. You know, we have a young audience film festival this year. It's not only in person, but we're now taking the films into the classrooms. The filmmakers from around the world will virtually attend the classrooms and talk to the students. This is actually a Corona opportunity because we hadn't done that before. And now we can be a festival that has a bigger geographic input because more people in different parts of Germany can experience it, as opposed to having to be in the Rhine-Main area.
Yeah. Yeah, so maybe it is a chance to look for new ways and to look for a connection between not so different positions, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
I think everything's a crisis opportunity to me. If there's a crisis, you have to say, where is the opportunity? What can you get out of it? Because otherwise you just end up worrying all day and you don't move your cause any forward.
That's not what we want to do.
Yeah.
Ms. Harrington, thank you very much for the interview. And
great.
We open the exhibition on 6th of September.
Oh, fantastic.
Maybe you have time to look.
Yes, I'd love to come. And how long will it stay open?
In more than 4 months. Months, yeah. More than 4
okay, perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. Okay. Bye.